Hello everyone, welcome back to another video where today I just got back from London, so I'm a little bit frazzled, but I wanted to bring you some news from TV Zone, confirming basically what I think we've all known for a very, very long time at this point, that there were scripts being worked on officially for Season 3 prior to the ending of filming, and obviously before the decision was publicly announced that Disney decided not to renew their deal. So we're going to be getting right into this. Feel free to subscribe if you're new, like if you enjoy, and let's dive right in. I also want to say as well, thank you to everyone who said hello at Comic-Con. It was lovely to see all of you, and I will talk more about that in a future video. So for the sake of full transparency, I was reached out by TV Zone with this information prior to it going live, and I did tell them what I've said repeatedly on this channel, which is when I was filming Wishworld, numerous members of the staff at Bad Wolf assumed that they wanted to come back to do Shooty's third one. Now, I was filming around April for my scene in Wishworld, and I believe filming wrapped around May, so about a month later. And this was obviously pre-reshoots, where we know they reshot an ending for Reality War, which involved Shooty leaving and regenerating into, eventually, Billy Piper. Obviously, this is all pretty much known, but obviously now we have official confirmation that this was the case, because, as is pointed out here, third series of Doctor Who with Ncuti Gatwa was being written in 2024 before Disney Plus pulled out of BBC deal and Gatwa quit. A third series of Doctor Who under Bad Wolf was being written by showrunner Russell T Davies in 2024 before Disney informed the BBC they did not intend to renew their partnership deal beyond Season 2. TV Zone understands. TV Zone has seen crew CVs from Bad Wolf which state that scripts were being written and developed from May to September 2024. So May was the wrap of the original Season 2 filming, so this would make sense. Following the end of production of Season 2, which had begun filming during the first half of that year. In a 2023 BBC interview, Davies stated that he knew what was happening in the third series, which at the same time was planned to air this year, 2026, despite Disney's initial contract only being guaranteed for 2 series and a third not guaranteed. Previous reports suggested it was presumed by production that Disney would renew their partnership for the show, so we're planning future series far in advance of the conventional timetable. TV Zone approached the BBC for comment. I highly doubt they will say anything on this. In late 2024, Ncuti Gatwa seemingly confirmed original plans for production to commence on the third series in 2025, and that he would remain in the lead role. During an interview with the Graham Norton Show, Gatwa said, "We did the second series this year. The Christmas special is coming up, and we're filming a third series next year." His comments were cut from the episode's final edit. We've covered this before. Following the confirmation that Disney were out, and Ncuti Gatwa made the decision to leave the show and forced a rewrite to Season 2's original ending, months after filming wrapped. The cast and crew were back on set for Gatwa's Regeneration, the original ending to Season 2, which featured Carol Ann Ford as the Doctor's granddaughter and first companion Susan, remains unseen. Last October, the BBC officially confirmed long-standing rumours Disney were not renewing its deal with the BBC for future series, therefore would not be involved in the third series. Within the same announcement, the BBC put to end months of speculation confirming a Christmas special for 2026 by Russell T Davies. It has been widely speculated, though has not been confirmed by the BBC, and Davies has not addressed the rumours, that the upcoming festive special will be Davies' last in the role as showrunner. The BBC stated Davies had agreed to write the special, which will follow on from the events of Season 2's finale, which saw Ncuti Gatwa regenerate into former Doctor Who actor Billy Piper. And then it goes into a former quote, and obviously quotes we've read before about BBC being committed. Billy Piper saying, "Wait and see," Russell T Davies saying, "Oh, what's going to happen? It's just the beginning." We've read all of that. So we now have essentially the full timeline, because obviously, as I understand it, they got the CV of a script editor for the Season 3 scripts that obviously were being written at this time. So I feel like we all knew that these scripts were being written, but the interesting thing is how far along they actually were. They weren't just written by Russell, but they were being sent off to script editors and stuff like that. And obviously Russell T Davies wouldn't have written those for fun. You know, he would have written those in the spirit of being paid, to quote that Kitchen Nightmares line. So it's fascinating to me, this whole thing, for a couple of reasons. Obviously now we have the full timeline, and when laid out, it makes perfect sense. My kind of confusion comes from 2 things, really. Why would you plan 3 series or 4 series in advance when you were only commissioned for 2. Because it's obvious to me that, like, these first 2 series weren't meant to be the end of this era. And while I'm not saying that they had to make a definitive ending for season 2 if Disney didn't renew, I think leaving it on a more conclusive note than they ended up doing would have been beneficial. Because even in the original season 2 we know that they were going to shoot involved Susan teasing a 3rd season, which obviously seems like a weird choice even if Ncuti didn't vacate, because there was no guarantee Disney were going to pick it up. The other interesting thing, though, as I said, is obviously these scripts are now out there, not just via Russell, but also by these people's CVs who were script editors on these scripts. So these scripts are out there somewhere, these lost season 3 scripts. Whether we'll ever see them resurface, I don't know. I bet Big Finish are rubbing their hands together with this information. It is also possible that Russell could stay on and rework some of the existing scripts for a future series, perhaps, because obviously we've all assumed he's leaving. But that isn't nailed on yet, you know, he very well could stay for 1 or 2 more if they can't get anyone else. But I think it's fascinating having the timeline of this basically from start to end. Obviously, you get the filming of season 2, the end of filming of season 2 in May, they start properly working on season 3 scripts, getting script editors in and stuff like that, gearing up for the next series, and then Gatwa goes on to Graham Norton, says they're working on the next series, and then obviously that gets pulled when it became pretty obvious that Disney weren't renewing. I think the one thing I will fully take issue with Disney for, because obviously I do think it was a fault of the Bad Wolf team and Russell getting so kind of, like, far ahead in ideas when they'd only had 2 series commissioned. But the one thing I will get on Disney's case for, and this is something I've said before, is they very easily could have said to the Doctor Who crew after season 1, look, we're probably not going to renew. Just to give them a heads up. Because then we probably could have avoided this whole mess with Gatwa leaving and all of that kind of stuff. In the end, I just find the situation completely, like, unfortunate and sad. You know, I saw Gatwa at the convention I was at yesterday, and he was amazing. And I just kind of think that had he been given the time and material to do it, he could have been one of the great Doctors, and I just think it's a grave shame that he won't be now, unfortunately. The question is, would this series have been any good? Honestly, I can't say. Until we have scripts, which may never come, it's impossible to say. Obviously, we can infer from the original ending that was cut that that series would have revolved around the Doctor hunting for Susan and Poppy. That would have been the arc, presumably, for a 3rd season, and it would have been very family-focused, having all 3 of them in the TARDIS, Ncuti, Millie, and Verada, all in the TARDIS together, trying to work that out, presumably, you know, more adventures along that line. And obviously a lot of that stuff can't really happen because of how tied it is to Gatwa specifically now. That doesn't mean, though, that some of the, you know, episode ideas couldn't be reused. I think that is very much possible. I know that, like, that's not exactly a foreign concept where you'll write a script for one Doctor and then it'll get revisited somewhere down the line with a different Doctor. I think Dot and Bubble was actually written as a Eleven and Amy story originally, so there you go. So it's not impossible that it could be reused for potentially, if Russell stayed on, you know, another actor, potentially. I have said before I want someone new, but I wouldn't be surprised if part of the reason why potentially they could keep him is, hey, we've got these scripts lying around that we, you know, we can use or repurpose rather than having to rewrite, you know, a bunch of new scripts from scratch, which may help a little bit. I don't really know. It depends really how big those scripts were in terms of scope and how much they would have required budget-wise. You know, it really depends, I suppose. I suppose you could scale them down. I don't know. What would it have involved season 3? I mean, probably the Daleks, right? Susan at some point. Probably a continuation of, you know, the gods. Maybe eventually the boss. The Rani was also left chilling out somewhere at the end of the reality war as well. So that... maybe she would be the boss. I don't know. Leave your theories in the comments below. Maybe we'll hear some more. I'd love to hear some more about, like, the scripts themselves, because I think that would be fascinating. But I assume they are probably under lock and key somewhere, with someone pretending like they don't exist. Yeah. But that's all I've got time for, really. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you later.